Before we leave the topic of loops behind, I want to talk about array pointers and show you how they work. It may seem like a technical detail, but it will become important later when we start working with databases. PHP maintains a pointer that points to one of the items in an array. That item is referred to as the current item. By default, that's always the first item in the array. When we start looping through arrays using something like for each, PHP moves the pointer down the array as it assigns each value to the loop's variable. Moving the pointer to the next item is how PHP keeps track of which item you're working with now and what the next item is that it should give you after that. But loops are not the only way to move pointers around. Let's take a look. Let's create ourselves a little workspace by using basic.html, and we'll use save as, and we're going to create pointers.php. To begin with, let's just give ourselves a little area here, PHP, and we'll put in our array of ages. I'll also change the title to be pointers. All right, so this is the array that we were working with before. So the pointer, by default, the current item that's being pointed at in this array is the first item, 4. As we do a loop through there, the pointer moves. So the first time it's pointing at 4, the second time through the loop, it's now pointing at 8, and then it's pointing at 15, and so on. It moves all the way down, and when it gets to the last one, then it moves one more and says, oops, there's no more items, I must be done. And so the loop ends. We can take a look at this current pointer value by using the current function. So here it is, just current, and then we pass in the array. That'll tell us what the current value that it's pointing to is. Let's try that. Let's save it. Let's go back to Firefox, and instead of break, let's open up pointers.php. So there it is. It's pointing to the item 4. I've got the 1 in front of it just so that we can tell the difference between each of these tests that we run. So here's 4. Now we can tell the pointer to move to the next item manually by using the next function. So here's it is. It's just simply next ages. We're just saying, hey, advance the pointer for ages to point to the next item. And then we'll once again echo back what the current item it's pointing to is. This time I've got a 2 in front of it so we can tell the difference. I'll save that. Let's go here. And there it is. It's pointing at 8. See how that works? Let's go back and let's just do a couple more here. Let's tell it to go 2 more times, and then we'll do a third one. And we'll ask it what it is for the third time. All right, it went 2 this time, so we're at 16. So you skipped over the 15, and now we're pointing at 16. We can also have it go backwards by using prev, short for previous, P-R-E-V, and that's going to move it backwards. So tell ages to go backwards 1, and then we'll use number 4 to see what the value is at now. And there it is. It's at 15. It went backwards 1. We also have 2 more that we'll look at together, which are reset. So reset will move the pointer back to the first element, and end will tell it to shoot all the way to the end, to the last element. I've numbered those 5 and 6. Let's take a look at that real quick. So there we are, the first element and the last element. And now, just so that we can see what happens when we're at the end, let's go ahead and do next one more time. So here it is. It's at the end. We're going to call next after the last element, and that'll be number 7. Let's see what that gives us back. We'll do return. We get back nothing. Right? So that's how it knows that it's done. When it retrieves the last item, if the last item is null, then it knows that it's done. Okay, so how is this useful? Let's take a look at a while loop example that will illustrate how it works in practice, and which is going to set the stage for working with database records. Switch back over here, and let's just put a BR tag, and then we'll put in my while example. So it's a while loop that moves the array pointer. This is very similar to what for each does. Notice that in the condition of our while loop, right here, this expression, that we're doing an assignment, not a comparison. That is a single equal sign, not a double equals. What we're doing is we're assigning a value from current to age, and we're also testing then to see if that assignment was successful. If it returned a value, then the expression is going to evaluate to true. But if it returned null, in other words, we got to the end of it, then this expression will evaluate to a Boolean false. Null will be considered false. And so at that point, it will exit. So what we're essentially saying is, get the item that the array pointer points to, assign it to age, and if that is an item, if you successfully got one, then execute the loop. If you did not successfully get an item, well then exit the loop. We're all done. And then of course we do have to increment inside the array using next. That'll move the pointer to the next item so that now current will fetch something different the next time through the loop. So as I said, this is how for each works. So why not just use for each then? Well, I want you to see this technique because when we start working with databases, we're going to use something very similar. We'll retrieve many rows of data from a database table as an array and then move through each row, advancing the pointer as we go. But we can't use for each for this because the database pointers are not exactly the same as the array pointers. They're similar, but not the same. And the database pointers are going to be moved by the database driver each time that we request a row. Each time that we do this assignment here, it's going to increment the pointer as soon as it finishes making that assignment. For each and next won't be able to move those database pointers. They're going to work only on PHP arrays, not on these database arrays that we'll be working with later. So let's just try out this code real quick. Let's save it, and we'll go back to Firefox. Let's try and reload the page. Notice that nothing happened. Well, why is that? Well, it's because current is still pointing at null. Remember? Current here was null, so what is it here? It's still null. Nothing has changed. We need to reset the pointer back to the beginning for ages. And now, when we come back here, you'll see that it zips back to the beginning, and it starts going through with each one, 4 all the way through till it gets to 42, and then the last one is null, so the loop ends. So I hope you understand how pointers work, and this gives you some insight into how for each works, and also how you can manipulate those pointers yourself. But more importantly, I want to make sure that you're familiar with this syntax using the while loop, because that's what we're going to be using when we start working with databases.